Oline, and welcome to the Sacred Groves of Nemeta, the Sophianic School of Arts and Sciences. I'm offering this introductory message to answer a question. I'm pretty sure that most, if not all of you who come to this platform might ask yourselves this question: how do I find my way into this material so that I can engage with the topics and themes that really interest me and learn how to apply what I find to my life in a way that matters in how I view life and in how I conduct my affairs in the world? That's the question. I could put it in other forms, but I think you get the point. And of course, it's natural that you would ask that question. Now, there are two ways I can answer that question. One is the short form, and the other is the long form. So you'll find the short form here in this short introduction, and you'll find the long form under the same title with a text and the continuation of this talk on the page for visitors. So the first thing that I can tell you about how I teach that will benefit you in approaching Nemeta is that I use a multifaceted or full spectrum method of delivery. So compare this to what you would find in any university or institute of higher learning. You have the faculty of the university, they have their offices, and each one of the professors teaches a particular topic. So there is the professor of biology, of history, of art history. And each one of these professors only teaches that one subject. That is not the case here. And perhaps it might help if I use the word guise, a guise or a role. So in presenting Nemeta, I come to you through a variety of guises and roles. I am, for instance, a teacher of the humanities, but that's not all. So it's quite different from the situation that you find in conventional higher education. Yes, indeed, it is different. And I can't overemphasize how different it is. And this difference in the character, content, and delivery of Nemeta can be quite disorienting and baffling and off-putting. I'm fully aware of that. Exactly for that reason, I'm attempting in this talk to make it easier for you who come to Nemeta to receive the material and make it to the best of your own benefit by explaining how that material is coming to you, the manner in which I am attempting to reach you. And this is really, really important to understand. It's important to me. So I rely on your patience and your determination to follow what I'm going to say here in the preview and in the full talk available to registered visitors. I've used the terms guise and role, and those terms are applicable. But it might be better if I introduced the concept of a stylistic identity. Just think about that phrase for a moment. A stylistic identity. So I deliver the content of Nemeta and also everything I do in my talks in a stylistic identity or in a spectrum of stylistic identities. Now, there's a world famous French writer who has been an important figure in my life, Louis Fernand Céline. And Céline once said, referring to himself and his literary output, "Le style fait l'homme," style makes the man. Now, I would paraphrase that in this way. Style is what instills and supports the authentic character of any individual or the message coming from that individual. So you would know, of course, that artists who have attributed or contributed significantly to the humanities and to the propagation of morals and values for living better, living correctly, living according to a certain standard of humanity, you will agree that they are all characterized by style. So there is the style of the sculptor Brancusi or Brancusi. There's the style of James Joyce, and in Joyce you find also a multiplicity of styles. The style of his book, Portrait of the Artist as a Young Man, is different from the style of his short stories, Dubliners, or from the style of Ulysses, which in itself contains a multitude of styles. Likewise, for musicians and composers, the style of Beethoven is not the same as the style of Stravinsky. So style is, you could also say, a mark of mastery of the material, whatever it may be, writing, sculpture, music, and the style gives the signature to that material. So what is my style of delivery? Well, I use various stylistic identities. Now, this may seem like a baffling phrase, but I can make it clear immediately by referring it to the well-known phenomenon of LARPing. So LARP stands for live action role playing. So we know now that due to the anonymity of the internet, anyone who goes on the internet can assume a role, a guise, a fictional identity. In the live action role playing of massively multiplayer games, there is an avatar. You assume an avatar to play the game. And that avatar is your stylistic identity within the game. So this analogy is clear, and I think it's vastly demonstrated, largely for the worse, by examples of people LARPing on the internet. So what you see in the delivery of the content of Nemeta is a massive performance of LARPing. I don't simply come through in one assumed identity. I come through in, well, how many? More than a dozen. In the text that goes with the complete version of this talk, I undertook to make a list of the stylistic identities that I employ in Nemeta, and I was amazed. I was myself amazed by how long the list is. I'm not going to go through that complete list here, but you can read it in the text for that unit. Now, I have to do it in this way. I really have to, because what I teach is not just one thing. It is the unity and coherence of many things. So, for example, I'm looking at this extraordinary list I made. Here I just say 3 or 4 examples of the stylistic identities that I employ. So, on the one hand, I'm a self taught scholar of the history of religions, philosophy, and occult and esoteric systems specialized in Gnosticism. So, I'm a teacher of Gnosticism. But then again, I am also a beneficiary of modernism and of the modernist tradition in poetry, literature, and the arts. How many Gnostic scholars would also present themselves in that manner, in that role? Third, I'm also a teacher of naked eye astronomy. That is the art of reading the celestial code, reading the skies, and following the cycles of the sun, moon, and the planets. And that guise or that role goes into another, which is the comparative mythologist specialized in sidereal mythology. Sidereal mythology is the specific genre that investigates myths associated with the observable constellations in the sky. And hold on, it gets worse. Or, depending on your capacity to listen, it may get better. I also come across as a kind of psychologist. More specifically, I teach applied noetics or cognitive psychology. And I have stated, and I stand strongly by this statement, that the living gnosis today is primarily a system of applied noetics. Finally, as I say, I'm just cherry picking a few examples from the long list. I present myself as a Turton or a treasure finder. This word Turton comes from Tibetan Buddhism. So in that specific role, in that specific technique of delivery, if you will, I present myself as the treasure finder of the Terma of Gaia awakening. And that stylistic identity, again, goes to another one. And this is a rather humorous example of the spectrum of my LARPing. And that would be the role of a Zen heretic, Lama Lovemut, the founder of Dog Zen. And so I come across in that role as a critic of Buddhism in all its shapes and flavors. And that LARPing role goes to another, which is the exponent of the Maitreya process. So I don't pretend to be the Maitreya, but I may as well be, or you may as well be also, if you know what the Maitreya process is. So you see, this is just, I'm just skimming or scanning over the full list. And I realize that the mercurial character of what I do, the role shifting or shape shifting in my delivery, can be disorienting or off-putting. I admit that. I am constantly aware of that, but I do it anyway. It's the only way I can deliver the abundance of what I have to teach. So I'll conclude this preview here, and if you so desire, you can go and hear the full talk at Nemeta, and you can look at the text where I list, how many of them are there? I don't know. More than a dozen of these stylistic identities. And I also talk about the really important subject of the 5 master metaphors that are my main tools, my primary tools for delivering the content that you find on Nemeta. So I will see you over there.